Hey everybody, welcome to SlothFab Garage. I'm taking a walk right now and we are going to put one of our new steering box skids on an 05 LJ. So stick around, we'll give you a little bit of a walkthrough on what that all entails. Well, with the coming out of our new aluminum skid plates here from SlothFab, figured that we would do a quick little video on the proper way to install one of these. Well, it may seem pretty plug and play, which was the idea behind them. There's a couple little tips and tricks and oddball notes that I wanted to cover, so we're going to make it really simple. We're going to do it here. So there's only a couple things that you're going to need for this. Really simple list. You're going to need a 3/8 ratchet, and the reason I like a 3/8 ratchet for this job is because the bolts that need to come out tend to be very stuck, especially since they use thread lock from the factory, and I don't like the idea of potentially snapping those bolts, especially the ones from the steering box. So I like a 3/8 because you're not going to put enough leverage on that to potentially snap anything. So that's what we're going to use for that. You're also going to need a torque wrench so that you can put stuff back together. A 50 to 100 pound is great. The things we're going to be doing are right about 70-80 pounds. So that's also going to be super necessary. You're going to need a 5/8 socket or a 16mm socket. Both of them will work for steering box bolts. I'm using a 5/8. It works perfectly. So then you're also going to need either a T55 bit if you have the factory bolt holding your bumper on yet in the front. Otherwise, if you've swapped that out to a hex head bolt, you'll need whatever the appropriate size for that is. Usually they're 3/4, sometimes they're 18 or 19mm, depending on what you've got. The one we're going to be working on is a 3/4, so we'll be using that. And you're going to need grease and Loctite, and we will talk about the needs for each one of those once we get over there. And then on top of that, all you're going to need is 2 washers that came with your steering box skid, and of course, your steering box skid. So let's go throw one of these on. Now, the vehicle that we're going to be putting this on today is this 05 LJ here, affectionately known as Ted. Now, this is an 05 and it is an LJ, so we do have the Mercedes box on this as opposed to the Saginaw box that was used on the earlier models. But regardless of which box you have, what year it is, this will fit. The process is going to be the same. So it's really straightforward. You have 3 bolts to deal with, and these are those bolts. The first one is the bolt holding the bumper to the frame at the underside here. This may be a T55 if it is still the factory bolt. This one has been swapped out when this bumper was put on, and this is a 3/4. The other 2 bolts are these 2 right here. There are 3 bolts that hold the steering box to the inside of the frame. We're going to be using the 2 lower ones today. Now, those are very tight if you have not removed them before. Those bolts run through this brace here and through the box, and they stick out right here and right there. Now, those do have Loctite on them from the factory, so they can be kind of a pain to get out, especially since there are threads showing on the end here that tend to get a little dirty. Now, this is a Wisconsin Jeep. It actually came from Canada, and I'm not going to lie to you, this has been gone through very, very well, and it's very well maintained. But those steering box bolts have never been removed, and even with how clean this is, they did not want to come off. This is Wisconsin, and they didn't want to come off. I spent probably 5 to 7 minutes on each bolt, maybe just working them back and forth to make sure that I did not snap them. That would be a very, very big deal if you snapped one of those bolts. So I worked one of them off all the way and then tightened that back up and worked the other one off. That helped to take the pressure off of one while I was taking the other one off. Once they were both fully loose and could come in and out, then I was able to take them both out without any issues. One thing I do recommend is that you take a little bit of grease before you start and kind of smear it on the ends of these, getting on those threads as much as you can, and then as you back that bolt out, it'll help pull the grease through the threads in the sleeve there, It is threaded for a good bit. It is not threaded all the way, thankfully, but I would work it out maybe 1/2 inch and then back in, re-grease if necessary, and then work my way back and forth. Again, this is part of the reason why I recommend using the 3/8 wrench, is because you're not going to put enough torque on one of these to snap it. I actually did break a socket doing this, even with the 3/8 wrench, but I was using low quality sockets on this specifically for the purpose of I would rather have that break rather than one of these bolts, and that's exactly what happened. So now that all of these are loose, I went through and took everything out and greased everything just before this so that I didn't struggle during the video here, see for you guys to laugh at me. But everything has been removed and is loose, so I'm going to pull these out and then we will show you what you got. All right, now that we have all our bolts off, the next thing you want to do is check to make sure all your mating surfaces are good. So these are clean here where it's going to sit, and then obviously the bottom of my bumper is also clean. So that's all good. Now what you want to do is you want to take your long bolts for the steering box, clean them if they're dirty. Obviously you don't want anything on those threads that are going to inhibit you putting them in nicely. And you're going to run them right through the side of the box here. Now that those are through, you're going to take the 2 washers that were provided with the skid and slide them on the inside. What these do is these act as spacers between the box and the sleeves in the frame here. And the way everything lines up, it just helps keep everything square and straight on that corner. You don't 100% have to use them, but it is highly recommended just because it helps keep everything in line. It also creates a little bit of a barrier between the steel and the aluminum since these are zinc coated, so you have less chance of corrosion going on in there. Now, what we're gonna do to get this actually on there is you're gonna take a little bit of thread lock and you're gonna put just a little bit, a couple drops on each one of these bolts. And I am using orange thread locker here, and this is high strength removable and it does very well with vibration. So I have been using that for a couple years now and I've really come to like it for Jeep stuff. So that's what I'm using here. You could use red, you could use blue, whatever works best for your particular scenario, but you should put some type of thread locker on there. These are very important bolts. You definitely do not want them backing out. So these are in until they're at the threads, and then I'm just going to give each one a couple twists. Can't pull them out anymore. They are twisted in. Perfect. That's right where we want them. And then I'm going to take the bolt for the bumper. I'm also going to put just a couple drops thread lock on that as well. Let's see, a little cold in here. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and thread this up through here. Now this bumper is not perfectly lined up, so hopefully we can get this on here without too much trouble. I think we might be able to manage. Maybe not. There we go. Not too bad. Now I'm going to take this one. I'm going to take this one up until it's snug. I don't want it fully tight yet, so I'm just going to get it kind of set. Okay, I don't have any more play in there. I felt it snug up on me. So then I'm going to go ahead and get these nice and snug as well. Okay, and then this one. And then these are going to be torqued back to factory specifications, especially with these being as important as they are. Don't really want to take any chances with them, and that's why we're using thread lock and factory torque spec. On my personal rig, these are greased and not torqued to spec, but my Jeep does not get driven on the road very often. It is trailered pretty much everywhere it goes, and I do a full bolt check before I go anywhere. And I do tend to take things apart a lot because I tend to break things occasionally. So that works for me, but I highly, highly recommend using thread lock and torquing these back to factory specs. A quick internet search brought me to a couple different torque specs for these, but what we're going to go with for the sides is 70 foot-pounds of torque, and then the nut underneath here, the bumper nut, we're going to go to 77 on that. So these will get torqued down to spec. Now that everything is installed, I have clearance all around, everything is sitting properly, all my mating surfaces are good. So look at those, will get torqued back to factory spec, and then we should be good to go. All right, now that I have this on, I just want to take a quick second just to kind of give you a little bit of a look around at it. So from the side here, you're kind of following this additional plate here for the steering box. Everything is nice and snug and tight. It's kind of hard to tell, but the washers go in between the plate here and the frame and keep this side plate nice and straight. Overall, it's just a very nice, clean, snug fit around the box to add a little bit of additional protection on this corner. Lots of room to get a socket up in here, regardless of whether you're running a bolt or running the factory Torx bolt. Overall, it's just a clean look. That's why I started building them. I do really enjoy the look of aluminum on these Jeeps. So hopefully this helped you guys out a little bit, made things a little bit simpler, a little bit better understanding of the proper way to get one of these on and torque down nice and tight. So that's where I'm going to leave you for this. If you guys have any questions on these, or if you want to order one, I don't have a store up for these yet, but I will soon. Otherwise, you can find me on Instagram. I will leave my business page handle in the description for this video. If you have any comments, questions, want to know anything about these, I can answer those questions in the comments of this video. And otherwise, like, follow, subscribe, bell, all the good stuff. See you on the next one.